The headset clicks on. Line 4 is live. You say what you've said 10,000 times before. 911? What's your emergency? And then the world stops. Because the voice on the other end, small, shaking, barely holding itself together, is not a stranger's. It's your kid. You know that voice. You heard it say, "I love you, Mom," this morning. You heard it ask for pancakes. You heard it laugh at something stupid on TV. And right now, that voice is whispering, "I don't know where I am, and I think someone is still in the house." You have one job in this moment. One protocol. One rule that every dispatcher is trained to follow without exception. Stay neutral. Stay professional. Get the information. Send the help. But this isn't a stranger's child. This is yours. And what you're about to discover across the next 11 minutes is that the hardest part isn't the danger your child is in. It's every decision you make while they're in it. Let's set the scene because you need to understand exactly what kind of pressure this room creates before you can understand what it does to a person. You work a 12-hour shift in a county emergency dispatch center. On a busy night, you're managing 6 to 8 active lines simultaneously. You are not a police officer. You are not a paramedic. You are the person those people wait to hear from. You are the first link in a chain that saves lives or doesn't. The training is brutal and specific. You do not panic. You do not assume. You ask standardized questions in a standardized order because that structure exists for one reason. Emotion gets people killed. A mother who hears her son screaming and starts crying cannot relay a clear address to a responding unit. A father who freezes because he recognizes his daughter's voice cannot keep a scared child calm long enough for help to arrive. The protocol is not cruel. It is the opposite. It is the only thing that works. And you know this. You have known this for years. You have coached other dispatchers through their first traumatic calls. You have given the speech yourself. Leave yourself at the door. The caller needs a professional, not a person. So when line 4 opens and your child's voice comes through, trembling, real, unmistakable, the first thing your body does is obey. You start the script. Can you tell me your location? Your hands are already moving. Address field. Incident type. Priority flag. But your chest is doing something your training never covered. And here's where the first decision hits you, before the second minute is even up. Your child doesn't know they called 911. They dialed you, your personal cell number. But your cell is forwarded to dispatch when you're on shift, department policy, and the call routed through the system like any other. They think they're talking to their parent. You think they're talking to their dispatcher. And those two things cannot both be true at the same time. Do you tell them who they've reached? Do you break protocol and say, "It's me, it's Mom, I'm here," and risk destabilizing a child who is already terrified? Or do you stay in the role, stay in the script, and become a stranger to your own kid while you try to save their life? You have about 4 seconds to decide. What do? Most people assume the hardest part of a 911 call is the emergency itself. They're wrong. The hardest part is the information. Specifically, getting it fast from someone who doesn't have it. Your child is scared. Scared people don't think clearly. They skip details, they contradict themselves, they answer the question you asked 30 seconds ago instead of the one you just asked. This is not their fault. This is what fear does to the human brain. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logical sequencing and clear communication, goes partially offline when the body enters survival mode. You know this. You've dealt with it hundreds of times. But the callers you've dealt with before were strangers. And with a stranger, you can push. You can interrupt. You can say, firmly, "I need you to stop and listen to me right now." Can you say that to your child? Should you? Here's what you know so far. Your child is at home. Or at least they were at home when they called. The address populates automatically from your personal forwarded line. That's a small mercy. Units can be dispatched. But where in the home? Which floor? Which room? And the question that's been sitting underneath every other question since the second the call connected. Where is the intruder? Your child says they heard something downstairs. A door. Maybe a window. They hid. Good instinct, they hid. And now they're somewhere dark and they're breathing too loud and they're asking you a question you are absolutely not supposed to answer. Mom, am I going to be okay? Protocol says, help is on the way. I need you to stay quiet and stay on the line. But your child didn't ask a dispatcher. They asked you. And every parent alive knows there is only one answer a child needs to hear in a moment like that, whether it's true or not. This is level 2. And you haven't even gotten to the hard part yet. Because while you're managing your child's fear, you're also managing a dispatch floor. Your supervisor is 2 desks away. Other calls are coming in. The unit you dispatched is 6 minutes out. 6 minutes is forever. And you have a secondary problem that just appeared on your screen. The address your system flagged? There's a note on the file. A domestic disturbance call. 3 months ago. Same address. And the involved party listed on that prior call, the one who was asked to leave the premises, shares a last name with you. Let's slow down. Because this is where the situation stops being a crisis and starts being a specific kind of crisis. Every dispatcher who's ever had a call go sideways will tell you the same thing. It's never one thing. It's layers. It's the call that seems straightforward until it isn't. And by the time you realize it isn't, you're already 3 decisions deep into a direction you can't reverse. The prior incident flag changes everything. Because now you're not just dealing with an unknown intruder. You're dealing with the possibility, and you have to say this out loud in your own head even though every part of you resists it, that the person in that house is someone you know. Someone who was removed from that address 3 months ago. Someone who may have had a reason to come back. You cannot confirm this on the call. You cannot ask your child, is it him? Can you hear his voice? Because that question does 2 things. It tells your child something that might not be true and send them spiraling, and it tells you something, confirms something, that you are not in any position to act on neutrally right now. You are the dispatcher on this call. You cannot also be the person most personally affected by this call. But you are. Irrevocably and completely, you are. Here's the decision that defines level 3. You can flag the call. You can raise your hand right now, get your supervisor over here, brief them on the conflict of interest, and hand this call to someone else. Protocol actually supports this. A dispatcher who is personally connected to a caller is supposed to transfer. That is the rule. That is the right thing. If you transfer, a trained professional takes over. They have no emotional stake. They will do the job cleanly. But they don't know your child's voice. They won't know when the breathing pattern changes, when the silences shift, when something is wrong in a way that doesn't show up in the words. You will always know. And those 6 minutes until the unit arrives, your child is going to spend them talking to someone. Do you make it a stranger? You don't transfer. You tell yourself it's because continuity of care matters. You tell yourself it's because you're the most qualified person to manage this specific caller. You tell yourself all the professional things. But underneath all of it, the real reason is simple and human and completely understandable. You can't let go of the line. And that decision, that completely human, completely understandable decision, is about to cost you more than you expected. Because your child just went silent. Not the scared kind of silent. Not the holding their breath kind. The wrong kind. In dispatch, silence on an open line means one of 3 things. 1. The caller has moved somewhere safer and is staying quiet by choice. 2. The caller has been discovered and cannot speak. 3. The call has been disconnected at the source. Your line is still open. The system shows active. The call hasn't dropped. So it's 1 or 2. And you have no way from where you're sitting, from the other end of a still connected silent line, to know which one. What you do next is the most counterintuitive thing a dispatcher is trained to do in this scenario. You don't call out. You don't say your child's name. You don't say anything. Because if it's option 1, if your child is hiding and the intruder is close, then your voice coming through that phone speaker could give everything away. You stay silent too. And you wait. 30 seconds of silence on a live 911 line is an eternity. You know this professionally. You've watched the clock on calls like this before and marveled at how slowly time moves when the stakes are high. But you have never watched 30 seconds pass on a call where the silence belongs to your child. 32 seconds, you hear something. Footsteps. Not your child's. Too heavy. Too slow. The careful, deliberate movement of someone who doesn't want to be heard but hasn't accounted for a phone with an open microphone. The footsteps are getting closer. Your unit is now 4 minutes out. For minutes. And here's where level 4 breaks you open. Because the footsteps stop. And then you hear a voice. And it's not your child's. And you know it. You know that voice the same way you know your child's. The same immediate, bone-deep, undeniable recognition. You've heard it in this building. Heard it across a table. Heard it say things, gentle things, awful things, ordinary things, over years. And now you're hearing it move through a house that person was told to stay away from. You are a 911 dispatcher. You are listening to a crime in progress. You are the parent of the child that crime is being committed against. And you have 3 minutes and 40 seconds until that unit arrives. What do you do with that time? Here's what the manual says. The manual says, continue to gather information, keep the line open, do not take independent action, do not alert the subject, wait for the responding unit to arrive and handle the situation on scene. The manual was written for dispatchers who are not listening to their own child's life. You break protocol. Not dramatically, there's no movie moment here, no throwing of headsets, no standing up and screaming. You break it quietly, the way people break under real pressure. One small step at a time, each one feeling justified in the moment, each one moving you further from the place you're supposed to stay. The first thing you do is speak. You say quietly, calmly, with the voice you use when you tuck them in and everything is fine. You say a single word. Just their name. Just once. And you hear the smallest sound. Not words. Just breath. A shift. An acknowledgement. They're okay. Or they're still okay. They heard you. They know. The second thing you do is flag your supervisor. Not to transfer the call. To give them the name. The name of the person you believe is in that house. You write it on a piece of paper because saying it out loud on a recorded line in the way you're feeling right now is something you can't take back. And you slide it across the desk without looking up. Your supervisor picks it up. Reads it. Looks at you. Says nothing. Picks up their own line. The second thing you did might save your child. It might also end your career. Both things can be true. You've already decided you don't care. The third thing is the one you'll spend years asking yourself about. Because with 2 minutes until the unit arrives, your child's line goes loud. Not silent this time. Loud. You hear your child's voice. Full volume. No longer whispering. Say, stop. You can't be here. I already called. And then a second voice, the one you recognized, says something you can't fully make out. And then your child says, clear as anything, sharp as anything, I called 911. They're coming. Smart. So extraordinarily smart. Using the information as a shield. Telling the truth as a threat. The footsteps move. Fast now. Toward the exit. Away. You hear a door. Outside. Gone. Silence again, but the right kind this time. The quiet of a space with only one person in it. 1 minute and 40 seconds later, the unit arrives. Here's what they don't tell you in dispatcher training. They tell you about the call. They train you for the call. They run you through simulations and debrief sessions and stress inoculation exercises specifically designed to prepare you for the worst possible moment. They don't tell you about the 4 minutes after. The 4 minutes where you're still sitting at your console because you can't leave yet, the line finally closed, your hands finally still, and every decision you made in the last 11 minutes is sitting on the desk in front of you like evidence. You spoke. You said their name. You passed a note. You didn't transfer. You broke protocol in 3 distinct, documented, recorded ways. And your child is safe. Those 2 facts exist simultaneously. They do not cancel each other out. They do not make the other disappear. The debrief happens the next morning. Your supervisor is there. A union rep. Someone from HR. Someone from the department's critical incident response team. They have the recording. They've heard everything. And the conversation is not what you expected because these people are not monsters and they are not indifferent, and they have not assembled in this room to punish a parent for being a parent. What they're trying to figure out, what all of them are trying to figure out together, is something that dispatch training has never fully resolved. At what point does professional neutrality become its own kind of harm? Because your child used information, I called 911, they're coming as a deterrent. That information came from knowing who was on the other end of the line. And your child only knew that because you said their name. One word. One protocol violation. One completely human moment. Did it save your child's life? Maybe. Would your child have found another way? Maybe. You will never know. That's the part that stays with you. Everyone who hears this story asks the same questions. Did you do the right thing? Should you have transferred the call? Did breaking protocol put your child in danger or save them? Those are all reasonable questions. They are also the wrong ones. The question nobody asks, the one that actually matters, is this: why do we build systems that put people in this position? Dispatchers are human beings. They have children, parents, siblings, histories, relationships. The entire architecture of emergency dispatch is built on the assumption that a professional can and should be able to set all of that aside completely and function as a neutral instrument of the system. And most of the time, almost all of the time, they do. They do it extraordinarily well. Every day, in dispatch centers across the country, professionals handle calls that would break most people, and they do it with clarity and control and genuine competence. But the system's assumption that neutrality is always possible, that professional training fully overrides human connection, that assumption is not tested by the average call. It is tested by the call where the voice on the other end is someone you love. And the answer, if there is one, is not that dispatchers should be more robotic. The answer is not stricter protocol or harsher training or faster transfer procedures. The honest answer is that we don't actually know what the right answer is. Because the same human instinct that made you say your child's name, that unscripted, unrehearsed act of being a parent instead of a dispatcher, also produced the piece of information that may have given your child the courage to speak. I called 911. They're coming. For words. Spoken by a child who knew, in that moment, that they were not alone. That someone on the other end of that line wasn't just a system, was a person, was their person. For words that ended the encounter without physical contact, without injury, without escalation. Were those 4 words the result of your protocol violation? Or were they the result of your child being your child, brave, quick, resourceful, regardless of what you did or didn't do? You don't know. You will never know. And you go back to work the next week. You are a 911 dispatcher. You have taken more than 40,000 calls. You have heard things that can't be unheard. You have helped in situations you never spoke about afterward. You have done your job. And once, one single time out of 40,000, the voice on the line was your child. You said their name. Everything else worked out. Maybe those 2 things are connected. Maybe they aren't. That's the part that makes this story not a story about a dispatcher. It's a story about the thing that sits underneath every professional, underneath every protocol, every training, every practiced neutral voice. It's a story about what you're made of when the call is the one you were never supposed to get. Line 4 is live. What do you say?